The ATG core standards are much like the lower body standards, built from the ground up, meaning measurably strong from the foot on up. So for the core, that means resisting from the foot, which exposes weakness in the lower portion of the abs and the hip flexors. The simplest of these standards is thighs above parallel, knees raise up, then extend, then fight down, never going below parallel. 12 reps is the standard, but it smoothly scales by working this at lower levels or by just working on the knee raise portion. The original ATG standard was actually hooking up to a cable machine with something sturdy to hold behind you and doing half your body weight, 20 reps, getting hamstrings to cover calves. That still stands and it scales to virtually any level because you can just go lighter on the cable, but that's not necessarily accessible compared to a simple chin-up bar. So we have two standards for this area. And the ATG split squat is always in the program to ensure lengthening of those hip flexors. Strong and long hip flexors are very rare, but very attainable because the standards, while not perfect, have been a workable guide of things that most people can't do, but can get to. And merely by working on these things, people are finding more potential for athleticism and longevity. ATG was a gym that started 8 years ago. I was a failed high school basketball player, knee surgeries, always prevented from knees over toes. Then it was actually knees over toes that got me able to play basketball without knee pain. I ended up marketing myself to a junior college, Eastern Florida State, that gave me 2 years full ride scholarship to play basketball. At the end of which, I got another full ride scholarship to a 4-year Division I university, so I was going to be able to play my last 2 seasons. But because of those knee injuries, I was 21 by the time I was about to start my freshman year, 23 by the time I was going to be playing Division I. So the NCAA denied my eligibility. But from my perspective, I was gradually learning and using these knees over toes exercises to regain the joy of pain-free basketball, then to find out that at the Division I university, I was actually going to be prevented from knees over toes, which is what got me there. So when the NCAA denied my eligibility, it was like, I got the call from the head coach and it was instantaneous. I knew my purpose is to really help people understand this knees over toes thing because it's literally what got me here. But now I'm going Division I, my lifelong dream, and I'm not going to be allowed to use knees over toes. I actually had a dozen Division II offers on the table, and the schools told me I was nuts to give up full ride American college scholarship to play basketball for another 2 years. But I knew what my purpose was. Same year, that year, started ATG, was getting consistent results for people with knees, became the go-to guy in town for knees. But no matter how strong we got the knees and powering up vertical jumps, powering up starts off the line, something about top end speed was not adding up, meaning we were able to duplicate the jumping and the explosion off the line of elite professional athletes. And I was even starting to train professional athletes. But the guys who naturally could run fast at top end speed in the weight room, we were failing to mimic that. What was the disconnect? We didn't stop looking. This was our mentality. All of us coaches were trying to have world-class athleticism and bulletproofing. We kept going. Then it really started to click. I saw a clue in an old program from Charles Poliquin, low cable pull in. It had like a few sets at the end of a workout, low cable pull in. Did some digging, found what this looked like. We started doing it and we realized what we've been missing. We've been powering up measurably the ability to put force there, pushing down. Where is our same measurable overload intent over time for picking those legs up? So we started to see that the fastest it was beyond a doubt. And look, you can go do your studies, whatever you want. I love every aspect of this. My aspect is to be on the fringe. And there was no doubt that the people with the fastest top end speed proportionately were stronger at picking up those legs. So this became a way of life for us. We set up cable machines with plyometric boxes, plates on top, so you can hold on. And it was a really consistent standard, this half body weight, 20 reps. What that really means is, let's say a middle linebacker comes in who's slow as dirt and can't get recruited to college. And we find out he's super weak there. And we have all these other areas. And so we fix these weak links sure, keep going past the standard. But by fixing these weak links, we can kind of eliminate that that's what's gonna prevent someone from finding out their athletic potential. From there, well, what happened? The world changed a few years ago. My gym was legally shut down. And when that happened, it was like the next light bulb went off that I need to figure out how to take all this unusual stuff we're doing that's super hard to do from gyms and figure out how do I make this accessible. So the first thing I did, I ended up spending a full 6 months without any equipment, like literally just my body. That became known as Knee Ability Zero, which has thousands of knee success stories. And for the hip flexor, what we do is we work on the L-sit. Now, the real value of that, I think, is when you're really weak and just sitting on the floor and working on contracting those muscles one leg at a time. It's so cool. We'll use footage right here from the form video in Zero. Anyone can start working that. You start getting a little bit stronger. You start lifting your butt up off the ground. And then, of course, we still have the ATG split squat and the couch stretch, so we're lengthening out. We have longer and stronger hip flexors because we don't want to be powering up the legs and the ability to handle force into the ground and then not proportionally train this. So the L-sit became a really useful thing. You're also training one side at a time. For people who have had knee surgeries, it can leave a lot of trouble in its wake. Like a knee surgery, some people bash the tibialis raises, but boy, if you've had knee surgery and then been immobilized for a very long time, and then you don't measurably train the ability of the toes to flex up, you can have a whole another host of issues in your foot and ankle and patellar tendon. So it's the same with the hip flexors, a really high chance of being imbalanced. It just helps mentally start working on one side. Boom, all right, there we go. So Zero. Then dense became like, the next program became like, how do we gradually take this to the next level from a home gym? Then right around that time, the monkey foot came out to add weights to the feet. Now we were actually doing this a couple ways in person. Number one is on the lying cable exercise, low cable pull-in. We call it reverse squat to get a little sexiness around it. You can call any of the things I do, whatever you want. So we would do those one leg at a time. So we were already familiar with this concept one leg at a time. So when I saw the monkey foot come out and you could attach it to a dumbbell, I was like, yes, L-sit, monkey foot, that's a really nice balance, kind of like what we were doing in person. So, and in addition to that, so just to clarify one thing on the monkey foot loads from the heel. So while it's really useful for the hip flexor, it's not really the same for the tibialis raises because the weight's here instead of here. So in person, what we would do is we would use floss bands and attach dumbbells to the foot. So we were also doing tibialis raises. Now there's some on the market, and I'm still working on one to get it just right. I've tried a lot of different prototypes, but I do think there's value in something where where the weight is at the ball of the foot. And so the only reason I don't have one specific thing I'm marketing right now is because I really want one from the ball of the foot. I like stuff made in America. All my stuff right now is made in America. It allows me to restock really quickly, not to have to go into big financial risk on huge orders, not have huge delays. I can restock things in a few weeks. So I do think something that loads from the ball of the foot will allow you to do the single leg tibialis work and the hip flexor work. So that is super accessible though, and I still stand behind that. L-sit, monkey foot. So now when we get back to standards, let's look at our options here because you may have more in your gym than you even realize. Another angle we worked in person was stall bars. These are really common in European gyms and it allows you to go like this, but it holds the back straight. So when you go toes to bar, you can't just lean the same way you can here. It keeps you really strict. And we like this one because again, if I had like a dirt slow athlete, I would get them on there and they wouldn't be able to get their toes to the bar. And it's like, well, like, how do you expect to like keep up with the next person? Not to mention, what if you're dropping like a sack of potatoes on a Nordic? But then my fast guys, like probably the overall most athletic guy I trained, Xavier Pope, he was having to hook ankle weights to his feet and go toes to bar. Like this is absolutely nuts in terms of the hip flexor strength. Now some super fast people, you won't even realize how strong the hip flexors are because they're tight in the hamstring. So if they try certain drills, maybe it's their hamstrings limiting their ability to show you how strong they are. But if you hook them up to a cable, usually they can lift a truckload. So stall bars, I think, are valid. We get a standard of 10 reps, toes to bar. So you might be surprised, your gym might have that right now. What's called the gar hammer raise, you can absolutely do hanging. So if you're like feeling pretty good about yourself, no shoulder issues, because that's the main reason I use these, is because a lot of people report just the shoulders feeling weird in that position and maybe getting some shoulder discomfort. And I'm not trying to do anything like, is it better overall to hang? Grip strength, all kinds of lengthening, stretching. Yeah, I think this is better overall. But if this is uncomfortable for someone's shoulder and so they don't like doing it, so even for me, I like this because I can really just lock in, like, what am I focusing on here? I can really take these things to failure and just focus on what I'm trying to train. Comfort is a big thing for me. Essentially, for me to use it in this system, it's got to be really like comfortable to push yourself to, towards failure. That discomfort doesn't get in the way of what you're trying to train, and that it's measurable. So you could add anything you want to the ATG system. That's just kind of my job, is always to keep the system focused on those things. So you got a lot of options now, from a cable strap hooked up, which you could do 1 or 2 legs. The single leg, whether it be with the monkey foot or the cable, there's a lot more wiggle room to kind of cheat. It's hard to explain until you try them. Whereas like this is going to be quite strict, the L-sit quite strict. Even the cable to get the hamstrings to cover the calves is pretty strict. I think it's basically that the other leg it's kind of easier to like get momentum with, but it doesn't mean it's not valid. So I did my best to just be genuine with you here in the garage and try to recap what ATG is and how it's built to now and what your options are. If I forgot anything, I apologize, but I do think this is probably the most value I can bring, is this style of, for each area in the system, just kind of retracing the journey that brought us to now. There's no words to express my thanks to you spreading this system. So much cool stuff is happening. I wish you the best.